Struck a match on the moon, calling planet Earth. Christopher from Sun Ra Arkive. The song was recorded in 1961. I struck a match on the moon. Late period Chicago. It was released by Sun Ra LLC on the Transitions 3 compilation, which was an iTunes digital compilation. I would need to check and see if that's on Bandcamp as well. But all your Sun Ra remaster, reissue, re-release needs will be taken care of in the Sun Ra LLC Bandcamp for digital files. But this is a real treat because I had heard that they performed this song in the late 80s, maybe Cambridge, Massachusetts, but it was a real rarity. I never got to see it myself. I never heard a recording of it until very recently, and then to find out that there was a 61 version that was recorded was really cool to find out. This was something that my friend Richard talked about a lot as being one of his great concert memories of many of the orchestra, but a song that he always wanted to hear again. So he would have been thrilled that this was released. I'm sure he would be playing it on his radio show all the time. Good morning, Brad. How are you? Yes, featuring Ricky Murray on lead vocal. Another Ricky Murray vocal feature from Transitions 3, Dreamsville. Another dream tune. So, yeah, go check out this compilation. So, as my friend Richard always said, it's time to turn our gaze to the skies and enter Sun Ra's Cosmic Corner. I'm going to do about a half an hour today, loading up the Sun Ra Dedicated Bookshelf Part 2. Got a stack of books, and we're going to start out with today's immeasurable equation. Hold on one second here. Pulling it out from the bookshelf. The immeasurable equation, Sun Ra. We are consulting the Wolf Gierken printing of it. I think you can still get this. Still available on Amazon. This would be one of the, I'd say, core 5 to 10 books that any Sun Ra library should have. The immeasurable equation. So we've been reading one out loud every episode. And I'm going to reread the one from yesterday before we do the new one today. A natural free. A man wants to be a natural free, not to languish in a cell hidden from the world, unkempt with harassed soul. A man wants to be a natural free, as it were meant that he should be, as it were right that he should be. A man wants to be a natural free, so he can be. New one for today, the absolute like. This, their quote unquote life, is a comedy of errors, for it is human life that graces the roles that people play, and the play never ends. It never really begins to be. Producers produce, plays but play, and people unknowingly act their parts, like willing puppets, absolute upon a string, puppet by puppet upon a string. It's hard to speak after reading these. Like they command that you just be silent and let them sink in. I'm going to read it again. The absolute like from Sun Ra's immeasurable equation. This, their life, is a comedy of errors, for it is human life that graces the roles that people play, and the play never ends. it never really begins to be. Producers produce, plays but play, and people unknowingly act their parts. Like willing puppets, absolute upon a string, puppet by puppet upon a string. Sun Ra's Cosmic Equations. And while we're loading up the Sun Ra bookshelf, talking Sun Ra books, this would absolutely be one of the core, let's say 5, that you should have in your Sun Ra library. So this exercise this week of just hopping on random live streams, and it's really not been so random. It's basically I'm on holiday from work this week, taking vacation before the new year, and I've been thinking about Sun Ra and just kind of using this period to explore the live stream format and see how it resonates with all of you, if this is something we want to continue to do. So I've just been real simple about it and just seeing what happens. But over the course of the week, kind of here's what I see happening. So we've got Brad, who seems very eager to participate. We've got Jason, who has been participating. There seems to be some interests. They've been getting about 40 views or so on YouTube. So I think I'm going to keep doing these ad hoc exploratory streams this week while I'm on holiday. And then starting in the new year, the tentative plan would be that Friday nights around 8 or 9 Eastern time, I would schedule a weekly Sun Ra Archive live stream. And that would give plenty of time for everybody to plan, to promote it, and to hopefully get a good good audience in the live chat, watching all together, participating, chatting, communicating. I'll transition from this YouTube free kind of just me platform to something like StreamYard, and so I can have co-hosts, co-presenters, and then weekly we'll have a kind of scheduled topic so that you can prepare. We can listen to albums, and then we can come together and discuss, maybe have some interviews. So tentatively lined up, we have Mr. Marcus, and we're going to talk about Sun Ra and Thame's spiritual brotherhood and journey in Chicago, and ancient cultures, ancient Egypt, Ethiopia, Nubia, Africa, Mu, Lemuria, Bimini, and get Brad's thoughts about those ideas and concepts, his experience and study with them, and how they relate to Sun Ra's spiritual path and music. Hopefully we'll have another program after that with Mr. Voss, discussing his channel and Sun Ra Orchestra concert recordings, live tapes, mostly unprofessional fan-made audience tapes and rarities, and collecting Sun Ra. And let's see, John Hunt, Mr. John Hunt, who is a graphic designer and artist for Sundazed Modern Harmonic Records, who is art directing and creating most, if not all, of the Sun Ra reissues on that label. John is a wonderful artist, a musician, has diverse interests in music, and is also exploring AI and the possibilities of that as it applies to human conceived and made art, which I think is a really interesting question, modern question. So we'll have an episode with John Hunt. Standing invite for all of my mentors and friends who I contacted on the previous rounds of Sun Ra Archive podcast for interviews that either they weren't ready at the time or we weren't able to schedule a time. But all of those open invitations that I put out there previously are still open. So any of you that see this, that want to participate, all you need to do is just get in touch with me, and the floor is yours. Would be honored to have you come speak and share at any time, via this medium and community. Master Anderson, Master Allen, Master Ray, Master Davis, Master Thomas, Mr. Chusid, Mr. Dennett. Let's see, who else did we ask? The brothers Hines. And I'm sure there's many more of you. If you'd like to come on and talk, just get in touch. You're welcome anytime. Mr. Blass, Mr. Zalanki, Mr. Navarrete, Mr. Antonelli, Mr. Carville, any of my study partners and friends from throughout the years. This is an open invitation. This is not just about me. This is about our community and growing this Sun Ra energy. So that's what's going to happen, I think, with the live stream show over the next couple months, and then hopefully through suggestions from people like you, Brad, and Jason, you reach out to people that you think should be joining in and talking. And then in addition to that, we'll continue to focus on immeasurable equations because it's incredibly valuable and really important to me. We'll continue to focus on, as Sun Ra students and researchers, what assets we have available to us, the books, the records, the reissues. Hopefully we can keep up to date on Sun Ra news, what things are going to be coming out from Cosmic Myth Records, Sun Ra LLC Bandcamp, Modern Harmonic Sundays, Art Yard Strut, etc. And as those records come out, maybe we can have roundtable discussions on the new releases. And I think that gives us plenty to talk about. If you have any ideas, by all means, this is here for us and for you. So that's the thought. And then I'm 12 minutes in. I'm going to go about a half an hour today with Sun Ra Books Part 2. So right now, 1961 to 1962 from the Out There a Minute Blast first CD. This is Journey Outward, recorded at Choreographer's Workshop. After that, we'll hear Lights on a Satellite and Cosmos in Blue, aka Starships and Solar Boats, from that same Out There a Minute Blast first release. Okay, Sun Ra Bookshelf, Part 2. Oh, I can't believe that just happened. Oh, a sign of some sort. I just dropped the immeasurable equation on the floor. So embarrassing, and super embarrassing that you hear the sounds of pain that I make when I drop records and books. I try to keep them as pristine as possible. So the immeasurable equation taking a dump on the floor hurts. All right, here we go. Next, going on the shelf of the Sun Ra bookshelf is the Cosmo Biography of Sun Ra by Chris Raska. Love this book. Children's book, illustrated and written by Chris Raska. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Candlewick Press. I believe this is still in print. Chris put this out as a part of the Junior Library Guild Selection Series on Candlewick Press, um, 2014. So this is a children's book, beautifully, sympathetically, colorfully illustrated. I still can't believe I dropped the equations. And it tells, from a young person's point of view, the story of Herman Poole Blunt, who grew into the being Sun Ra. And it tells his story, starting in Alabama through Chicago. And this is a children's storybook that is perfect for hip jazz parents that want to turn their kids on to Sun Ra. My experience as an elder is that I enjoyed reading it far more than the kid enjoyed hearing. Good morning, Jason, Mr. Voss. Welcome. But it's a really nice thing to have. Great gift for a young person. But I don't know. I'd have to read it again. Maybe we could do a reading of it on the show, as far as how the narrative communicates to a child. It's been a while since I read it. But when I did read it to a kid, I think I got more of a kick out of it than they did. All right, next up on the Sun Ra bookshelf, we've got a trio of books from White Walls Publishing. John Corbett's Chicago exhibit of the rescued artifacts from Alton Abraham's estate, which John tells the story of beautifully in his Vinyl Freak book, which we'll get to later. So these three books were essentially kind of like a expanded catalog for that that gallery show, which I know Brad was at. Brad, no, I do not have original copies of Immeasurable Equations. Excuse me. I've only ever seen a couple of them that are owned by elder mentors of mine, but I don't have any. I really don't have anything rare, valuable, or original as far as Sun Ra goes, whether it be Saturn's original Immeasurable Equations, any collectibles or artifacts. I am a 90s Evidence CD era kid, and everything that I have or have been able to afford is all afforded through the great work of all the reissuers and scholars of kind of like the past 30 years or so. So the first book, Wisdom of Sun Ra, this is the broadsheets that Sun Ra and Theme Group and Saturn Research that Sun Ra was presenting in the park in the community in Chicago, the broadsheets that we had heard a lot about in previous years. John Swed mentioned them in his book, but we had never, most of us, no one I know, ever had the chance to actually see or read them. And this is basically very spiritual, religious, interpretations, deconstructions of the Christian Bible as applied to what was then the modern African American Black experience, and Sun Ra and his study friends, their research about the true origins and nature of our being and reality. Hard to read, honestly. Requires a lot of study. It's not easy reading. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of coded symbolism. The next one, Sun Ra, Paths to Unknown Worlds, which was the name of the show that Mr. Corbett organized at Hyde Park Art Center. And this is more kind of like a normal catalog of a museum show, basically showing photographs of the things that were displayed. I don't know if these are still in print, but these I would say are kind of like they may fall in the top 10 of must haves, or they would be in the tier 2 of nice to haves after the canon, meaning immeasurable equations, earthly recordings, space is the place. And then the third one was Travel the Spaceways, Sun Ra, Astro Black, and Other Solar Myths. And this is essays and illustrations of some ephemera from the exhibit. And this is more kind of like the essays from the people that were involved in the exhibition, the lectures, etc. But though these three are I'd say you got to have them. Next up, Sun Ra and IA Atan, Space Interiors and Exteriors, 1972. Which IA Atan was an artist and illustrator who you will recognize some of his work as being seen on some Saturn printed ephemera, Sun Ra records, etc. But he did paintings on the walls of living spaces in Chicago using predominantly black luminescent day glow paints that are spaceship and ancient civilization themed. And this book collects photographs of that work, Polaroid photographs of those spaces, which I think the spaces are long since gone. I don't know if any of the original artwork still exists, or if it's been long since painted over in the original rec rooms and living rooms that it was painted in. But this was edited by John Corbett, designed by Norman Hathaway, printed by Picture Box, and released on Corbett versus Dempsey Gallery. Don't know if this one. Don't know if this one's still in print. Beautiful, gotta have it. All right, core canon books, and the top 5 you gotta have. Space is the Place, John Swed, which I have read and reread more than any other Sun Ra book. I don't know. It was the first one I had. I mean, I've probably read it 15 or 20 times, front to back. I actually read it on my wedding day as I was waiting in the back of the church for my wedding and my wife. It went everywhere with me. It was the first overview of Sun Ra's planetary visit and career, craft and art. Swed managed to contact a lot of primary sources. He managed to get Sun Ra's entire incarnation, or last incarnation or previous incarnation in one book. It's very easy to read. It was published on Pantheon. It got a lot of press, got a lot of reviews. NPR talked about it. I think it was on the New York Times list. So this did a great deal to preserve Sun Ra's story and make it available for the ages, and easy to find. I see that you, Brad, and Jason are putting in comments here, but I'm going to try and just barrel through the books here. No disrespect, but I have a limited amount of time today, and I just want to kind of get through the next phase of books. Review copy of Space is the Place. This is the uncorrected bound galleys, which Richard gave me when I actually couldn't afford the hardcover of Space is the Place. Spent a lot of hours with that book. Next up, canon must have in any Sun Ra bookshelf, The Earthly Recordings of Sun Ra by Dr. Robert L. Campbell, Volume 1, and Volume 2, The Holy Text, Robert L. Campbell with Christopher Trent. So this is at the time when it was published. Let's look for a date here. I want to say 94, 95. Maybe the first one was like 93, 94, and this one was 94, 95, 96. I don't see a date. But all of the known released studio official recordings of the Sun Ra Orchestra, as well as all of the known concert recordings, unofficial recordings, radio broadcasts, etc. 800 plus pages, dates, numbers, lineups as far as the band, set lists, etc. Very little editorializing or description, and one of the great Sun Ra books. And this has not been updated or reprinted since. So obviously we've entered the digital era where everything's online. I think that probably has something to do it, because a third edition at this point, after whatever 25 years, I know just from me and my friends that talk about tapes, and having talked to Dr. Campbell about this, a new edition would be twice as big, because so much has surfaced. We have so much more detail about the recordings that were in here. Marshall has kept the band going all this time. So I think it would be prohibitive to reprint and update this book. But hopefully at some point, Robert and his colleagues will, update this. So Jason asks, do you have a list of recordings that don't appear in the earthly recordings too? Yes. Myself and my friends have worked in the intervening 25 years, as I'm sure lots of other listeners and fans have done, to create spreadsheets and lists of everything that's not in here. Yes, we have done that. And I'm sure Dr. Campbell and Mr. Trent have done that as well. But yeah, I mean, I'd have to say hundreds of listings that aren't in here, or things that could be expanded on. And yes, people have been working on doing that. So there's probably multiple sources of that information. All right, 28 minutes. I'm going to jam through the rest of the books for today. All right. So these were recommended to me by Mr. Marcus. This is the autobiography of Black Jazz, which covers obviously the history of jazz, but specifically has features on some of the musicians that were contemporaries of Sun Ra, that Sun Ra studied with, played with, admired, learned from, etc. And good one to have. And here's the other one that Brad recommended to me a few years ago: Chicago Jazz, Cultural History, 1904 to 1930 by William Howland Kenny. So to learn about the culture that Sun Ra and the orchestra came up out of and were performing in Chicago, in the 1950s. Here's a recent one, Sun Ra Chicago, Afrofuturism in the City by William Seitz. This is University of Chicago Press, soft cover. A really good book. I enjoyed it. I read it once. Need to read it again, but really a focus on Sun Ra's time in Chicago and the city itself. I remember it as being really enjoyable. I can't speak to how definitive it is, having only read it once. But that would be like a tier 2 or 3 book. Calling Planet Earth, Close Encounters with Sun Ra by Bob Mielk. Actually, I have not read this one yet. Still to do. Thank you, Mr. Chusid, for this copy. Anyone that has read it out there, please, in addition to all the other books, leave a comment what you thought of it. Brad says Yote had a good website about Sun Ra. Yes, he did. Did a lot of work. Very nice person. Very giving and sharing and kind. And I don't believe that site is still up. I'll need to get in touch with them because I really liked them a lot. All right, next one. Sound American, number 24 issue, the Sun Ra issue. This came out in the past few years. Still can't believe I dropped the immeasurable equation. It's like I have this pain in my body and my limbs from hurting that book. It's no longer a collectible. All right, so Sound American is an academic journal all about Sun Ra. And it's collected articles of kind of an academic slant. So a piece about Marshall Allen by Jesse Cox, Glenn Branca by Reg Bloor, Sun Ra and Duke Ellington Parallels by Ken Vandermark, a musician who I think Sun Ra fans probably have heard that name. Anything Can Happen Day, John Corbett. I believe that this is the article that's in John's book, Vinyl Freak, about when he got the call that Alton Abraham's home after he passed, everything was going to get thrown away, and how John rescued that and the excitement and the experience of that, which is a must read. A must read for Sun Ra lovers, especially people like us that are collectors. John does a great job putting you in his place and conveying the feelings of what that must have felt like. So, don't think that's in print anymore. Next up, we got 3 more at 33 minutes and wait for it. 33 minutes and 33 seconds. Songs in the Key of Z by Mr. Erwin Chusett, The Curious Universe of Outsider Music, including The Shags, Tiny Tim, Syd Barrett, Joe Meek, Captain Beefheart, Daniel Johnston, Harry Parch. I actually believe that this is prior to Erwin's immersion in the world of Sun Ra, but as an admirer and supporter of Mr. Chusett and his work, and a lover of outsider music, part of what I like about Sun Ra, I got this to see what Erwin's perspective was and who he included, right? So one of my all-time favorite outsiders is Moondog, and I wanted to see if Moondog was in here. And of course, you can't include everybody, but surprisingly, Moondog is not. Vinyl Freak limited collector's edition with unreleased Sun Ra flexi disc, Love Letters to a Dying Medium by John Corbett. Highly recommended. This has the article or the chapter about John rescuing and preserving the Sun Ra, Saturn, Thamay um, effects from Alton Abraham's estate when they were going to be thrown away. And it includes a flexi disc from those rescued artifacts of Sun Ra piano and vocals playing It's a Good Day. And someone has been kind enough to transfer this and upload this song to YouTube. So if you do a search, if you haven't heard it, Sun Ra, It's a Good Day from Vinyl Freak by John Corbett, Duke University Press. You can hear that. And then our last book of the day, which to me, this was a mind blower when I learned about Bergen Matthews, when I learned about Frank Doc Adams, a jazz musician from Birmingham, Alabama, who as a very young man / boy played with Herman Poole Blunt, Sun Ra, in his early bands. And then Doc went on to be a lifelong musician and educator in Birmingham, Alabama. Bergen Matthews and Doc Adams did a great service to music, to jazz, to African American culture, to Doc Adams, to Sun Ra, by putting this book out, which is essentially kind of like an oral history by Doc Adams. I believe that Bergen conducted interviews and transcribed them with Doc. So you really get Doc's voice. It's very first person, and Doc was a great storyteller and had lots of experience, a great memory. But his retelling specifically about his time with Herman Blunt, aka Sun Ra, and playing in Birmingham with him in the early days, and his retellings of those rehearsals in Sun Ra's, I believe Sun Ra's aunt's house in the front rooms where Sun Ra lived, with sheet music from floor to ceiling and Sun Ra's upright piano and the musicians spilling out of the rooms into the halls, is just, you can close your eyes and picture yourself in that space. And for that reason, I'd say this is a must-have book. You know, maybe it's not in the top 5 canon with Space is the Place, you know, Omniverse, Earthly Recordings, but it's in the top 10. So that's today's installment of Sun Ra Bookshelf. There's still more. So there's going to be a volume 3 or volume 4. Still got all the Sun Ra research by the Hines brothers, lots of magazines, still books to be collected together and put in the shelf. I actually think the shelf is going to be overfilled. I don't think it's going to contain everything, but I'll probably do another 1 or 2 of these books videos. But that's it for today, Brad. John. I'm sorry, Jason. Thank you for joining me today. Everyone else, like, subscribe, comment. Please let me know. Are you enjoying this? What can we do differently? Do you want to join in? Feedback loop would be very helpful to sustain this, if in fact that's what we do. And I'm thinking that that's what's going to happen in January. We'll schedule some official ones, invite everybody, do 1 a week, and see how that goes for a while. And we'll leave you with a comment from Brad about Alton Abraham's house in Chicago, that the house was being sold, not torn down, as some have said. So good to know. Thank you for your boots on the ground reportage, Brad. Everybody have a sunny day. And Keep on the sunny side. Peace.